You know, if I had $1 for every shitty opening console peasants had, I'd be investing thousands into Dogecoin right now.
Hey there YouTube and welcome to Willovision. Today I wanted to talk about one of the most important topics in the gaming landscape.
The rampant infestation of microtransactions, the inhuman hours of forced crunch, the Ubisoft sexual assault fiasco, Epic Games in its entirety,
which is gaming on a console versus gaming on a PC. In the long history of video games, the debate between the console versus the PC as the best gaming platform now stretches back decades.
Oh boy, another console versus PC gaming video. Because this hasn't been done several times before, and every single time, without fail, you guys come up short. Seriously, why do you guys feel the need to even make videos like this? PC is better. Debate over.
With the broadening of the gaming market due in part to the release of runaway console success stories such as that of Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox brands, and the centralization of PC gaming under Steam, more people are playing games than at any other point in history, and consumer data reveals that this trend will only continue in the years to come.
Okay, serious question. What is the purpose of the footage in the background? What relevance does it have to the topic at hand? No, seriously, why is it every time I see videos like this, they have unrelated footage just playing in the background? If you're making a video about a specific topic, the footage in said video needs to have some sort of relevance to the topic. This is where avatars like mine come in handy. It allows me to convey my arguments with little to no distractions. Also, I'm quite a handsome ass crab, so the viewers have little eye candy.
As the base of players grows, the debate between the consoles has only intensified.
No, the debate isn't intensifying. It's a dead horse you console peasants have been beating for the past several years. You guys can't accept the fact that consoles will always be inferior. They're made with cheaper hardware to be sold at a profit. Then again, you guys seem to think the PS5 is equivalent to a 2070 Super, and yet it has to run Control at the lowest possible settings just to run at 60 FPS. Meanwhile, my 1080 Ti graphics card and i7 6700K processor can run the game at 60 FPS on high settings. Oof. Not exactly the PC killer console peasants were hoping for, huh?
Many of us have become familiar with, or even on the receiving ends of monikers such as Sony Pony or Xbot, these titles being hurled towards the opposing trench lines in the perpetual console wars.
Jesus Christ! There is no console war! It's just chest puffing from people who simp for corporations because they like their plastic box. How about instead of flinging shit at other gamers, you guys fling shit at Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo for charging you to use your own internet and play your own game you already paid for? No? Not going to? Oh. Okay, carry on then. I want to see how many glasses of whiskey I'll down before this video is over.
But the debate between the console gamers and PC gamers has similarly raged. Before I continue, I want to make a quick disclaimer. This video is part 2 of a 2-part series where I discuss the pros and cons of console gaming and PC gaming, because I want the average consumer to have a better idea of what each platform brings to the table instead of simply hearing one side of the discussion. I still game on both platforms myself, and both of them have their advantages and their disadvantages when compared against each other.
Ah, yes, the old I did it to both sides, so that makes it okay argument. Just because you make a PC gaming is better than console gaming video, doesn't mean this video is any less shit. Punky J did this, Colt Eastwood did this, and most likely, other console fanboys that aren't coming to mind did this as well, and it didn't work out for any of them. By the way, keep the line so consumers have a better understanding what each platform brings to the table in your mind, because we're in for a doozy of misinformation in this video. But I won't spoil it. Just buckle up and be thankful I sat through this video so you don't have to.
So think about this question. What makes PC gaming or console gaming better to you, and let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, the PC is an open platform, doesn't charge me to play online, I have the freedom to choose where I buy my games, better refund policies, a plethora of games to choose from, Steam sales, and probably the most single important aspect, it's more than just a gaming machine. This right here is one of the things console fanboys can't seem to get through their heads. PCs can do more than just game. They can be used for video or music editing, to check your email, to either do business or schoolwork, listen to music, watching movies and TV shows, while the console's main use is always gaming. Now, of course, nowadays, consoles are leaning more into the media side of things, with allowing the use of streaming services, and even PlayStation having its own editing software called Share Factory. Although as someone who used to use Share Factory, I wouldn't recommend it, as it is very restricted in what you can and can't do.
So let's start with reason number one that console gaming is better than PC gaming, and that is that consoles are easier to use.
Okay, Heller, calm down. It's he doesn't know any better. He hasn't played PC. He just doesn't know. Okay, you can do this. All right.
As Mikhail Kalashnikov, designer of the AK-47, once said, "All that is complex is not useful, and all that is useful is simple." And when it comes to consumer electronics, setting up a video game console is one of the easiest things to do. When my Xbox arrived, I opened it up, plugged the necessary cords into my television, went through the process of accessing my Wi-Fi and logging into my account, downloaded the necessary updates, and used my free subscription Xbox Live.
When I first got my PC, I set it down next to my desk, plugged in the necessary wires, downloaded the necessary updates, and installed Steam. Hey, wait a minute.
I accomplished all of these things in roughly 2 hours before I was able to begin downloading my first game.
Jesus, 2 hours? What the fuck? My PC took maybe 40 minutes to get everything set up. Hell, even my PS5 didn't take more than an hour. What the hell, Microsoft? Why does it take 2 hours to set up something that's supposed to be plug and play? And this is a point against the PCs in favor of the consoles?
This is just not the case with the PC. Firstly, PC gaming requires the loading of an operating system, downloading Steam, checking your graphics card and updating the driver, so on and so forth, before you can eventually begin to actually play games.
All of which takes less time than it took your Xbox to set up. Also, you do realize game consoles have drivers too, right? This isn't a PC only thing. What do you think all those system updates that happen to appear before a major release are?
Is process ruinous? No. Is it as bad as pulling teeth? Certainly not. Is it simple? Not compared to the plug-and-play experience of a console.
Except not 2 minutes earlier in the video, you said that your Xbox took 2 hours after downloading all the necessary updates. So clearly, modern consoles are not the plug-and-play systems they used to be. If this was the OG Xbox or PS2 or earlier era, you might have a point. Do you even listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth, or is it just a constant stream of idiocy?
Additionally, if you want to play on a gamepad, many older games don't support that option, requiring you to go and download a third-party program in order to do so.
That's actually a decent point. Unfortunately, a lot of older PC games like Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Republic 1, and several other classic games don't have native controller functionality and have to be modded in. If you want to know why, well, it's usually due to who's doing the port. For example, for some ungodly reason, when EA was porting the Mass Effect games to PC, they had the team remove controller support, forcing people to have to mod it back in. However, while this is an inconvenience, it will only affect maybe 5% of the games on Steam alone. And even then, you can download community-made controller configurations for games that are controller compatible but don't have native support. Wow, I actually can't believe it. You made one decent point. The ball is actually in your hand right now. And if I'm being honest, I doubt it's going to be there for long, so relish this moment.
Which may or may not work at all. Even if it does work, that gamepad feature is often costly in terms of time and difficult to make work without significant trial and error.
And just like that, the ball has been dropped. If you're having trouble modding in controller functionality when there are hundreds of modding tutorials on YouTube, you might want to get a brain scan, because something is seriously wrong.
Now compare that to using a controller on your console, which requires virtually no effort. You put in your batteries and you press the on button. Very easy. And that's where this point ends. A PC is almost always going to be a superior machine, but not always a necessary one. And if you decide to purchase a PC, be prepared for the maintenance and natural issues that you will experience with a complex computing machine.
I mean, you could make this exact point against the consoles. Console machines are nice, but they're not necessary, and you have to be prepared to deal with the necessary issues that may arise, such as random crashes, freezing, having to restore licenses to your games, having to have, repair your storage drive because it got corrupted. Like, you seem to think that consoles are this perfect wonder machine that never have any issues, but let me tell you this. I played console for most of my life. I only just got into PC gaming last year. And I have had more problems with my PS3, my Xbox 360, my PS4, and even my PS5 a little bit. More times than I have had any issues with my PC. The worst I've had with my PC is that it accidentally deleted my save files for my Origin games. That's it.
Because they will happen, and when they do, you'll need to know you can take care of them. Which brings me to my next point. Reason number 2 that console gaming is better than PC gaming is that repairing consoles is easier than repairing a gaming PC, at least for catastrophic issues. Imagine that you're playing your Xbox one day. You're in the midst of an epic showdown with an immensely powerful brute on Halo. Your laser-focused, fast-as-lightning reflexes are your advantage in defeating your terrible foe. Just as you raise your weapon to deliver the mortal strike, your console turns off. You try to turn it back on to no avail. You do everything you know to do to fix the problem, but you just can't do it. So what do? Simple. With a gaming console, you can call Microsoft and have your console shipped to them for repair services. The repair services that console makers provide come straight from the source. You don't need to find a specialist, you just need to send it to one place 99% of the time.
So, you're telling me, if your console breaks down, you have to send it in to the manufacturer and pay a shipping fee in order to fix it. That's what you're saying? That's your point? Because you see, if something is wrong with my PC, I can figure out the issue and potentially fix the problem myself. I don't have to rely on a company who may or may not charge me depending on if my warranty is expired or not. It's the same with video games. If a game is performing poorly on console, you're kind of fucked until a patch comes through. On PC, you could potentially fix the problem yourself by adjusting your settings, verifying the game files, or even finding bug fix mods using Nexus mods. For example, New Vegas is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I fucking love that game to death. However, if you ask me where I would rather play it, PC or console, I'd go with PC. Because the console versions are the vanilla version, riddled with memory leaks and bugs that can be fixed on PC by downloading a fan-made patch. The fact that you have to use the company's resources to fix a machine you paid for is not a point in favor of consoles. It's a point against it.
And given the market pressures to provide stable, functioning consumer electronics, whatever company made your console will usually do whatever it can to get your product fixed. PC gaming manufacturers are a completely different story. Gaming computers are made by a myriad of companies, the overwhelming majority of whom don't have to operate under the same level of market pressure as Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo because they aren't as well known. A lot of gamers that aren't really familiar with the PC can't really tell you the difference between NVIDIA's graphics cards versus AMD.
Yes, we can. In the first result, when I searched the difference between AMD and NVIDIA on Google, you see right here, AMD GPUs tend to have more processing cores, Steam processors, GPU cores, or whatever you want to call them, compared to their NVIDIA counterparts. As an example, the AMD RX Vega 64 has 4096 GPU cores, while the competing NVIDIA GTX 1080 only has 2560 cores. And in this Reddit post right here, as this gentleman says, AMD and NVIDIA have their own separate methods for approaching graphics processing. The underlying concepts for processing graphics are the same. Each company has a different answer for how to make things faster. AMD typically says more memory, where NVIDIA says faster memory. AMD focuses on multi-monitor support, whereas NVIDIA focuses more on single displays. Crossfire has more leniency with the cards you choose, whereas SLI profiles tend to be more prolific. Bit mining, if you haven't moved on to FPGA or ASIC, is far more profitable with AMD hardware, whereas CUDA and physics are restricted to NVIDIA's camp. Rather than focus on things that are hard to quantify, your best bet is to find the games you enjoy the most and look at benchmarks. Some games are built with technology derived from one side or the other, hence game sporting, the way it's meant to be played, and gaming evolved. Battlefield 3 is the only weird one. It's an AMD-backed game and seems to perform well with NVIDIA. The long and short of it being performance is the only measurement. Look at benchmarks. You see, sometimes games are optimized for NVIDIA, but not for AMD, and vice versa, which is why it's important to look into these things. For example, the recently released Neo 2 has a lot of issues on PC, specifically with NVIDIA cards. Why? Well, as it turns out, it's because the game was optimized with AMD cards in mind, whereas AMD users are reporting less issues. And the reason is because the consoles use AMD type cards. Just because you're inept at researching your own arguments doesn't make them true.
With consoles, this information simply isn't as pertinent as it is for PC gamers. But let's say you have a problem with your gaming rig. If you're smart enough to figure out the issue on your own, congratulations, you savvy computer devil you. I tip my hat in respect of your computer skills.
Why do console fanboys always sell themselves short? They always act like people who can fix problems with their PC are these juggernauts of intellect, when the truth is, it's actually very easy to troubleshoot and figure out the issues. It's not that complicated, and if you're having trouble, watch a video.
If not, you're going to have to find a computer repair store, which I have found through personal experience can vary widely in terms of their customer service and ability to actually solve your problem.
Okay, well, first off, if your first instinct when your computer has a problem is to go to Geek Squad, that's kind of on you. Secondly, what's wrong with having to go to a place that specializes in computer repair? I mean, you just said, oh, it's so easy for the consoles to get their stuff. They just send it to the manufacturer. You act like just because you send it to the manufacturer, aka Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo, that they'll do a better job than people who dedicate their livelihood to computer repair. Kind of insulting, if you ask me.
Reason number 3 that console gaming is better than PC gaming is that consoles have first-party exclusive games. If there is any reason on this list that die-hard console gamers should be able to use as solid ammunition in the debate between consoles and the PC, it's that the PC gaming experience, going solely by the games which are released on PC, simply does not offer the fabled lineup that it once held the title for.
And that's only what I could find up to 2013. It seems we aren't exactly hurting in this market. Oh, but you guys don't have oh. Well, you'll never have Horizon. Oh. But Kingdom Hearts. Oh.
Microsoft has Halo and Gears of War. Sony has The Last of Us and Uncharted.
Actually, that's not technically true anymore. Because, you see, you can use PlayStation Now on PC, which means people can play The Last of Us and Uncharted 2 on PC, as well as Infamous and Ratchet and Clank and the Killzone games. The games you fanboys tend to forget about. I understand. There's not. I mean, it's so hard keeping track of all 5 of these exclusives. Man, I don't know how you guys do it.
Nintendo has Mario and The Legend of Zelda. All of these games have sold millions of copies and are even revered as some of the greatest games ever made.
So copies sold equates greatness. Huh. Good to know. Hey, FIFA, guess what? You're in the clear.
Sure, the PC has been the home of some fantastic series over the years. Crowbar swingers stand at attention. But without first-party developers, the PC gamer doesn't benefit the same way that consoles do in terms of exclusive games.
Well, that depends on what priorities people have. Some people look at pretty graphics and go, ooh, pretty, even if it's the equivalent of jingling keys. But I don't see games on console that have the complexity that games like Age of Empires or Total War, Warhammer 2, or even StarCraft, if you want to go back a bit, have. And really? You were able to come up with 2 games for each console but couldn't find another highly rated PC exclusive like World of Warcraft, Total War, Mordhau, Half-Life Alyx, Valheim, Satisfactory. You may not intentionally be dishonest, but you're definitely going the distance, it seems.
While Microsoft has been making their games more available to PC consumers, Nintendo and Sony don't appear to have any plans to do so. And their platforms are the only places you'll be able to play their games. Sony and Microsoft have been bolstering their respective number of first-party development studios to prepare for the upcoming 9th generation of consoles. Microsoft Game Studios includes names such as Obsidian Entertainment, Ninja Theory Limited, The Coalition, and 343 Industries. Sony similarly has an array of talented development teams including Guerrilla Games, Insomniac Games, and Naughty Dog Studios under their corporate umbrella. All of these studios have a solid track record of making great games. In contrast, the list of developers who exclusively focus on PC games is very, very small. And even though PC gamers can fairly point to some categories of games that don't come to consoles very often, such as RTS and turn-based strategy games, console gamers can equally point to the lack of many of the AAA games mentioned above in regards to the PC.
Halo and Gears is on PC, a lot of the PlayStation exclusives are on PC via PlayStation Now, and Nintendo games you can emulate pretty easily using programs like Dolphin or Yuzu. So, no, we're not really hurting for these games at all.
Even the games that do receive PC ports, like some of the sports games that a lot of us are into, don't have as strong of an online community. Look at the sales of Madden NFL 20 on the Xbox versus...
Well, that's because the console fan base is more casual than the PC fan base, and PC players tend to have higher standards than most sports games players do. But if your smoking gun is FIFA of all franchises, I think we'll be okay.
PC port. The numbers are simply incomparable, and besides which, PC ports of games often aren't as good as their console counterparts because companies don't want to spend as much time and resources on trying to make a PC as good as its console counterpart because they know that they won't see as much of a return on their investment due to the PC market not being as strong of a place to invest development resources. See the controversy in 2015 over Batman Arkham Knight on PC.
Oh wow, Arkham Knight. Yeah, that was a pretty bad port on launch. Name another game. Because for every bad PC port, there are about 15 others that are far better than their console counterpart. Or do we need to bring up the state of the Master Chief Collection on Xbox One? Also, FIFA numbers don't prove the PC market isn't as profitable. I mean, look at the numbers Master Chief Collection sold. That game sold nearly 2 million copies within the first 2 days of release on Steam. You want to play the numbers game? We can play. But you're way out of your depth.
Even though PC doesn't have the same list of exclusive games as the consoles do, one thing I've noted people saying about PCs is that they have more games, and while I don't really have any data on hand to refute that point,
you could try researching for once.
I'd ask you to go look at the game library on Steam right now, and you'll probably see what I see, which is endless pages of arcade games and other games that, while I'm not really going to pass judgment on them because I haven't played them, the games listed in their libraries simply aren't of the same caliber to make up for the experiences offered by the consoles.
Okay. Sorry about that. There's only so much you can take before you just have to scream. We're almost done. Let's keep going, shall we?
Number 4, that console gaming is better than PC gaming is that multiplayer games on consoles are generally going to be more equalized. When you're playing an online game on a console, everyone uses basically the same equipment, whereas on PC, different monitors, gamepads, keyboards, etc. can be optimized for gaming, which means it's possible for some players to have an advantage over others. Whereas again, with a console, there's really not going to be much variation for the average person using a controller, other than their inherent skill in the game. For example, I strongly doubt that many people even own the Xbox Elite controller, but even if they do, I think it's really unlikely for them to be substantially better at a game just because of the controller they're using alone. And then there's also the issue of specialized monitors here, which isn't a bad thing on its own, but it is definitely something that can have an influence when aggregated against the other technical factors at play here. And finally,
I was going to rebut this, but let's be honest, you have to have some form of brain damage to think what he says is true, so let's just move on, shall we?
We arrive at reason number 5 that console gaming is better than PC gaming, and this last reason might turn on an argument that's similar to the simplicity discussion in reason number 1. But in a word, the final reason that console gaming is better than PC gaming all comes down to optimization. When you buy a console, you're also buying a certain guarantee that you're going to be able to put a console under your television, plug it in, and it will simply work without any major issues popping up.
So all those people who bought a PS5 or Xbox Series X and plugged it in and it just didn't work don't exist then?
There's no need to evaluate a console's graphics card to make sure it's up to date. You don't need to worry about whether or not other players will have an advantage playing against you online with a mouse and keyboard. Well, you didn't have to at one point. And generally speaking, the experience of gaming on a console is that of overall ease and simplicity. With a console, a night of Netflix doesn't require a special setup or the breaking of social norms. Pew Research recently reported that the overwhelming majority of young people have access to or own a video game console. And the fact that gaming consoles are so widely used is a sign of their ability to be seamlessly used by so many people, without having to perform a ton of research on any exact product with certain specs for a certain budget or a monitor setup, so on and so forth. As previously mentioned, a console is something that almost anyone can use without resorting to techno jargon or a complicated setup. Consoles are the perfect, seamless technology that work with almost any existing entertainment item that you have in your home, and it's just incredibly hard to beat the convenience of throwing on a game and then switching over to Netflix or Hulu when you have your significant other over.
Netflix is only on I'm done.
Alright YouTube, so those are my 5 reasons why console gaming is better than PC gaming. So are my thoughts that of a silly console peasant? Are you praying now for the mighty Lord Gaben to smite me as I speak? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.
Your reasons were asinine and poorly researched. You clearly had no idea what the fuck you were talking about, hoping using run-on sentences would distract the viewer from actually analyzing what came out of your mouth. And I'm pretty sure I drank enough alcohol to kill a small animal just to get through this abysmal video. So, all in all, pretty worthless. But I don't know what I expected. For now, I'm going to go play some Ultra Kill for some much needed catharsis, and I'll see you all in the next one.